Hello guys, and welcome to a long-awaited, I assume, early waves on cryptos. It's been nearly 3 weeks since the last video. Things are a little bit quiet, to be fair, but we have recently seen some moves, and I thought it would be a good idea to do a video for you. In this particular analysis, we're going to see, of course, as always, what's going on really with BTC and the main count, some variations and some alternatives, and also very close between XRP, Matic and RUNE, but RUNE is the winner of this week's vote from the Quora Inner Cycle team. So this is what we are going to have a quick look as well on later after the BTC. So without keeping you long, guys, before we go to the charts, let me remind you that none of this is to be considered as financial advice. Okay, so let's go on BTC and RUNE. And if you have questions, feel free to either join Discord and ask in the free group, or leave a comment on YouTube. So on to BTC, and you well know, if you follow me, that I've been waiting for this to be a fifth wave to the downside. That would assume, of course, or presume that the cycle wave A is done. Then we're going to get cycle correction B, and then another wave to the downside for cycle correction wave 4. As a reminder, guys, this for me is super cycle wave 3. So I expect this downside to be a cycle ABC move, and from there go up for the final and fifth super cycle degree in cryptos, which is expected to be, well, should I say the longest? Usually we do see the fifth actually being the longest in cryptos, which is very similar to what we see in commodities. Now, this is the main scenario, and of course we do have some sort of variations, one of which is the primary wave 4 variation that sees you know, wave 4 not finished, not complete, okay, which means we're going to get 4 and then 5. It would also sort of imply that this is a W, X and Y with very disproportionate X and very disproportionate Y, unless we see something like this, but we want to see that very quickly. And you might ask why? Well, because if this is part of wave 4, we have to compare wave 4 with wave 2, and proportionally speaking, we want this wave 4 to finish as soon as we can, as soon as possible. I mean, okay, technically speaking, we can do, this is like 63 days or bars, but you know, we can even like do 2618 of this and still be valid case, which means we can go up to, let's say, like even like 200 days or so, and that will still be a case. But we've already like 2x the duration of the correction in wave B, so yeah, in wave 2, sorry. That is the idea here of me having this as a very disproportional W, X and Y. But as I said, I repeat, we can have wave X here and wave Y here, which would of course imply that we are looking at a potential double zigzag in here in wave X as well, okay, rather than anything else. The other variation of the long term deals with a disproportionate ending diagonal, okay, and we'll look at this fifth wave as a 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, okay, which is not, of course, my main, due to, you know, that there is a lot of things that kind of I weigh on when I'm looking at which one is the main, but this is not the main for me because of the disproportionality between the ending diagonal waves. Okay, now can the ending diagonal end up like being something different? Well, I don't think so, because then you would have to have WX and Ys in motive waves, and WX and Ys in motive waves are not allowed. You can get WX and Ys in the corrective waves of ending diagonals, but not in the motive waves. Another look at the cycle variation would be for our wave A having been finished here. This is looking at a disproportionate wave 2 and 4 to complete the cycle wave A here, and it gives us the or allow us a cycle wave B here, which means we're gonna stay a little bit here in this territory for the next few months until we finish primary wave B, then go up for wave C, and then fall to the downside. Okay, now as you can see, as I said before, because with primary flow variation, this actually looks a little bit similar. The difference is that wave B is assumed to be finished here in the primary 4, and it's a different case here, because if we're looking for a cycle wave correction, then we are not really limited by any sort of correction in wave 2. That gives us the space, or even not the space. It allows us to do the right thing, to allow the right thing for this wave B to be proportionate. So if we had this as A, then B is gonna sort of last a similar sort of duration here. We have 57 bars, for example. Look, I mean, we have like 57 here as well. But if you look at wave W, you've got 23 already. So X can be 23 or more, and then Y can be 23 or more, Now, if we assume that X and Y is done, you can understand that, we are stuck down here, and it doesn't really look nice. This particular case, though, for a cycle degree correction in wave B, it would be much plausible as well as more decent to assume this as a wave X, and then wave Y, and then we'll go up, and then we'll continue lower down. The other idea, guys, is the WX and Y here. And the WX and Y means we have a WX and an ABC. Again, equally, B may be done, maybe not, but it looks like more of a case that it's done, because X actually is like a higher degree move and is lasting less to complete. So it has to be assumed that it's finished. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for wave Y, C of Y. And that can be again assumed a case where it's finished. We'll have a very ugly ending diagonal, or a case of, an unfinished wave, even 2, up here, which would mean we will have a very similar reaction to the main, but it's going to be a double zigzag instead. The double 3 scenario is the one that I've been looking for ages. It was a main for a while as well. It assumes that we somehow gonna make a case of a 1 and 2, and then we continue up for 3, 4, and 5, which means this is the 4th ended. And the leading diagonal case, looking at a sort of leading diagonal here. The end, however, would be a different case. Here would be a correction in ABC, which means that our 5th and supercycle wave 5 is actually going to initiate it down here, and this would be a leading diagonal. It would be needed pretty much if this is the 5th. If we're at 18 and we did 70k at high, so it would really, I think it would be needed. So going back to the main, okay, just a reminder here, I'm expecting, guys, let's go down to the 1 hour. I'm expecting this to move actually higher. I'm looking at a wave 1 here. Yeah, as a 5 wave move to the downside with an extended first. An ABC here, okay, and I'm looking for a WX and Y for wave B here, guys. And then the expectation now is, of course, for a 5 wave move to the upside to complete wave 2, okay. The completion of wave 2 will actually determine whether this is an expanding diagonal or a running flat. Expanded flat or a running flat. So I repeat, guys, this is a wave 1. This is A, B, and C for wave 2, running flat or expanded flat. And from there, we'll continue lower down for 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Now, let me go a little bit in here to show you, because I've got a variation for this one as well. A clear ABC to me, okay, and I've seen a lot of people calling this a leading diagonal. There is no leading diagonal here, guys, okay? Forget about it. If it would be a leading diagonal, it would be it would have to be a case where wave 4 is smaller than wave 2, okay, and it's not. So it's impossible to have a diagonal here. It's just as simple as that. All the rules are violated. Then someone, you know, might have looked at this like 3, like 4 and 5 or something. It's still possible. We saw the alternate on the sort of when we're looking at the longer charts. That's not the point now. We're looking at this particular case as the main, okay, and its variation. Now look what we do have here. We do have an A, B, and a C, okay, and then you go W, A, B, C, D, E for X, and A, B, C for Y. That is our wave X. And then you've got an A B, and a C, which is a flat in wave Y of B, and a 5-wave leg to the upside, because we still have to complete a flat. Don't forget that. A, B, right? So let me just make this clear. We have a move to the downside and we're in wave 2. Our wave 2 is going to be an expanded or a running flat, and we currently finished wave B, okay, and we're moving up into a 5-wave impulse to complete wave C. So once we end the move to the upside, we'll continue down. Now, wave B of the flat, it's a W, X, and Y, okay? The wave Y of this B, it's a flat itself. Wave X of it, okay, it's a W, X, and Y that contains a triangle in its wave X. And wave W is a simple ABC with a leading diagonal, actually, pretty much looking at the leading diagonal, although I don't like the proportions here, but whatever. This is what we get. Now, you might have noticed that down here, we don't do a fresh low, right? And you're like, how are we moving up? Dude, we're coming back down. And I can tell you that because this is a running wave, guys, okay, it's for a running triangle pretty much, because this is what you get, right? Then what is the low? And this is why my W is here as well. It's here. This is considered our low, not this. You understand that? So we have actually registered a low here because we did come down to that level. You see that? But not to this level. And we don't care about this. Actually, that here, if we put our W here, that doesn't make sense as an ABC. Okay, look, what would you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And what would that be? This cannot be a leading diagonal. I repeat, okay? What else would you have? The only thing you could have for W here would be to have a W, X, and Y in W. Okay, that's the only alternative over here, to have this as a correct sort of structure. Now, there is a variation I have been looking, okay, and it's this one. That makes it a little bit of a different case. We have an ABC here. We still have a W, X, and a Y, but in this case, we have a larger triangle in wave X, okay? And what this means is that we have or expect an ABC here, okay? Which means we're going to see one more leg to the downside, okay? And then once we swipe those down, the long liquidation levels, you know, the stop losses, we're going to do another 5 to the upside, and then we'll go down. So the difference here is that, guys, we're still in wave Y of B, okay? Whereas in the main, we are not. It's the same thing, though, that we are seeing down here. We see a 5-wave leg. This is A instead, okay? Now, let me remind you something, or tell you something. This being B here is not necessarily the case. It's just that we have finished, or we have to place it somewhere. We cannot just leave it floating, right? We might get a triangle for B and then C, or all of this, since it's a wave Y, it might turn into a triangle, right? Don't forget this. We have A supposedly, but it could easily turn into even a triangle, all of this. So just, I want to tell you that, you know, we are expecting an ABC because that's the first case, the first probable case, okay? But if we do another see another wave down and it looks corrective, then we have to start considering a flat or a triangle, okay, in wave Y. So wave Y can be anything, guys, but our first assumption is that this is going to be a simple zigzag with wave B finished or unfinished. Either way, once wave B is done, then we expect wave C. Okay, now my main says that we are in wave C. Okay, and this is for BTC. I don't want to keep that any longer than that. Now let's go on RUNE. RUNE. Let's start with a long-term account. Of course, you know that I'm waiting for a W, X, and Y here, right? And there is like a flat here, an ABC, and then an A, B, and a C. The assumption is that wave B is finished and we're heading down in wave C. Okay, now I've worked on this for a long time to come to this conclusion. Okay, and you can of course test for yourself, but there isn't many sort of alternatives that we can have here apart from corrections, and I will show you in a minute. So for now, my assumption is that this is wave 1 and this is wave 2 for a flat. This is 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 5 for a leading diagonal in wave 1. This is an A, B, and we're going to get a C. And from there, we'll continue down for wave 3, 4, and 5. So there is more downside coming here as well. Okay. Now, this makes sense to me because it actually solves a lot of uncertainty and a lot of questions that any sort of analyst would ask themselves. Okay, first of all, this is the only sort of diagonal that makes sense here. You might ask, why not make that an ending diagonal? Well, because we don't have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Unless if you want to make this 1 and 2 and this 3 and 4, which is very ugly. So it makes more sense to me that this is 1, 2, 1, 2, and especially if we consider guidelines between wave A and B, okay, because this is A is from 13 down to 150. So, you know, C is not just going to be, okay, I'm going to just tag a low below A and I'm done, I'm going up, okay? So this is what my main expectation is, guys, okay? And just for the record, you know, look, this is a flat wave B down here, W, X, and Y. We went to below 138.2. We did close above, which is important, but, you know, sometimes, well, I'd actually look mainly at rejections. And this is a clear rejection here, right? Flat waves or any sort of irregular wave can actually do 162, okay? If someone else tells you it's 138.2 only, they haven't updated themselves in the latest sort of updates in Elliott waves. I only found out like a few months ago. So I was using 138.2 only, which made my job obviously much harder. So this is, guys, what I'm expecting here. And the idea is we're going to get a 5-wave move to the upside and from there continue lower down. Now, this 5-wave move to the upside is going to determine whether this is going to end up, as with BTC, an expanded flat or a running flat, okay? And I am more leaning towards an idea of a running flat because we have a leading diagonal supposedly here, right? So you might say, well, leading diagonals do correct quite a bit. Most of the time, yes, but because we want to finish here, like, you know, we want to, not want to, but the preferable thing would be to end this move to the downside faster than later. So my assumption, because we also have a leading diagonal here, leading diagonal indicates that this is going to be an extended third, right? Because we're expecting a flat. The extended third for me would mean that it will have to come with momentum and fast. So running flats, because they have truncation in their C wave, usually are the ones that they're driving more momentum into a third wave if you're in wave 2. And that is basically the reason. But it could easily be an expanding flat as well. So be prepared for both. We have actually had quite of a long wave 1 so far, supposedly. And we did a correction down to near the 62. Okay, so look. If we use the simple guidelines, we come above wave A, so that becomes an expanding, okay? But it could be like wave C might end up being just an ending diagonal here, guys, and that would, of course, make it much easier to understand that it's going to be a running flat. Now, the other thing I have been looking is a variation internally, okay, which sees wave B unfinished, because what we are looking is A and B and then C, right? So imagine that wave C hasn't even started yet. And all of this is just an A, B, and a C. And that, of course, is going to be a flat again. But in this case, we have a double 3 in wave A. We're going to get a double 3 or a double zigzag in wave B. And then we're going to get a 5 wave move to the upside. Then we're going to start wave C. Okay, this is the idea between these two. Now, due to the sort of corrective structure or nature of this move, although we don't really see, the truth is that in the medium term, many overlaps, we do see them in the short term, okay? This can be like an ABC as a WX and an AB and C for Y. But I'm looking at this as a flat in this particular case, yeah? Because this leading diagonal coming here, okay? Because we are kind of a little bit limited to how low we can go, okay, because we want to do the 138. You know, if we get something like 1 and 2 here, like I'm looking for the main case, then 3, 4, and 5 will go quite low, and it will be more chances that it invalidates the irregular wave B here. So because we're supposedly looking at a flat here, you know, we wouldn't want to go below $1 in this particular case, which means that we want to see like this and leading diagonal, and this, because the third wave is also shorter here, we want to see this being an ABC, which would make sense as a leading diagonal and a combination with an ending diagonal with a running flat in wave B. Actually, hold on, guys, because I'm skipping no, actually we cannot do that. I cannot do that, and I'm sorry about this. There is no 90 here. We did the 62. So we'll go back to the initial assessment. So how are we going to make this 1? Well, maybe it's going to be 1, 2, and A, B, and C perhaps. Maybe the 1 hour will give us a bit more clarity on this. Not really. Okay, then the only scenario, guys, I will be looking and consider this for both cases would be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, in the hopes that let me check quickly. In the hopes that we can have a flat. Okay, the 4 is not done. What if we could have a triangle? A, B, C, D, and E. That would be the only case. Okay, no overlap here, so that would be 1 and 2, 3 and 4. But I want to measure that a wave 3 is not smaller than wave 5. And it is, so we cannot get that even, okay? So we're gonna have to make some assumption here that, you know, this is, it's kind of perhaps something like this. We have 3 or 4 in here, so it has to be an impulse to the downside one way or another. Okay, guys, so that's all. Oh, I just realized that the light is very off, but anyway, it's just me and myself, so don't worry about that. What is most important is the chart, and you can see the charts. So if you have any questions, as I said, feel free to ask. And apart from that, guys, just take care, and it's a sort of a period that markets are quite volatile, so keep that in mind.